Yeah, I think we should just start. Hi, good
All right,
evening.
everyone. Good day. My name is Danny J. Manuel, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. Welcome to the Dribble AI weekly webinar. And then for this week, I've got a very, very fantastic personality. He's a professional in all ends, and then he's going to be talking to us on a certain topic, which I find actually pretty much interesting. Yeah, it's been on the trend for a couple of weeks, and this time around, let's hear from the expertise. Now, before much ado, let me just tell you who he is and then what he actually has accomplished over the span of a decade. Now, he's worked at both levels of both national and then state levels, and he's done quite a number of projects. I can't even put a figure to the number of projects he's done for the country Nigeria, and then even beyond Nigeria, internationally. Yes, it's well recognized in all the fields when it comes to publicity, and yes, it's a very very big name. And then for those that don't know, this one is a sneak peek. I actually found out myself. He actually does quite a number of things too for our movie industry. Yes, I think I have to look that one out, but it's actually good. I'm actually letting this out. And there's no other better person to actually talk on this topic that because slow performers actually become great improvers. And let's actually dig deep into this. So with that, very short hype on Mr. Dodson. Let's actually have him tell us about the topic today and then what we can learn from it. So Dodson,
All
the
right.
floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Now I see the reason why hype men and party goers usually just spend all their money after being hyped by the MC or the musician. Um, you know, and then you just wonder, did I really do all of these things, or is it just to make me feel a little bit more special than I am? Thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be on this space, on this forum to talk about this particular topic. So I'll just delve right into it. So our topic for today is: can slow starters ever become top performers? When you see this sentence in a topic, you ask yourself, slow and top. One would expect that it will be slow and fast or top and low, right? But the contrast here is different for a reason. And that's because there are different um, perceptions of understanding of what slow is and what a top performer should be. I'll tell you now that every other footballer out there um, who at least has scored a goal or two in their career. Maybe not the winning goal, maybe not a decisive goal, maybe not as many goals as they would have loved to score, but have been able to perform at a top level. Maybe just playing for a national team or playing for a club side, right? And then you see when they are being spoken about, they say this person has done this at the highest level, right? At that point, it doesn't matter if that person has scored a winning goal or not, or has contributed regardless of whatever it is that they return to to the team, but they are given that recognition because of the fact that they have been amongst these top performers. And it's also so interesting to actually say that sometimes slow starters are usually just overshadowed by you know a whole lot of top performers. So I'll get right into it. Especially for organizations, it's difficult to usually most times identify what the matrix for performance is, and so they even find it difficult to identify who a slow starter is and who a top performer is. That's because they don't have all of these indices to measure. So I'll start with a quote um, by Cody Sanchez. And this one says that the best hires blow you away week one. Never seen a slow starter become a top performer. So what this quote simply says is the best people, the best staff, the best hands on a job usually blow you away week one. And I have seen cases of this, and I've also seen direct opposite cases of this happen, right? And in the same vein, the same sentence or the same quote says, never seen a slow starter become a top performer. It's just like saying, I've never seen a slow starter in 100 meters race win a race. But I can tell you right now that if you go through all the archives of the Athletics Federation and the Olympics and all of that, you will find that most times it's not usually the person who runs the fastest at the beginning of the race who maybe ends up winning the race. So that tells you a lot, right? And so in deciding or in determining how this works, one, we need to identify or understand the fact that when most new hires or most people, individuals come into an organization, it usually takes them a little bit, like a while, to understand what that organization is all about, their role in the specific area that they have been employed. And most people even find it difficult to interpret what those roles are. Because again, there are several disparities in the minds of the employee and the employer on what tangibles are, deliverables. The employer expects you to do X, Y, Z, but you are coming in as an employee to say, this is what is stated on, on my to do or my JD. And you're like, okay, but the employer expects you to do even much more than that. Now, in that case, there is no doubt, there is no gain saying that that person would not definitely be in the books of top performers in the first 1 week, because that person might still try to understand, or is still trying to understand where he fits or how he fits into the specific role that he has been employed for, right? And I've also seen cases where people get on the job on the first day, they're already making sales calls, they're already getting active, they're already um, closing deals, they're already. So, what really makes the difference, right? I would say is the mentality of how we understand or how well we understand the job that we're being hired for. You can't tell me now that the first day or the first week that I hire a driver to drive me around, for example, and then something happens along the line and he bashes my car and I go, okay, so what's going to happen for the next 6 months, 1 year? Now, there might be circumstances surrounding that, and there are a lot of factors that might be, seen, unseen, unknown, and known circumstances, right? And so it really helps to understand all of these dynamics before we then determine who a slow starter is and then who a top performer is. And I also believe in the school of thought that you often have to give people time. Most organizations usually have like a 3 months, 6 months probationary period, depending on what kind of organization you're working with. And I've seen other school of thoughts across the business world say they would rather prefer when an employer has, or an employee rather has, like a year to basically just get in sync with the organization, his role, how he fits in, how he relates with customers, how he fits into the organization's mission, and all of that. But all of these are school of thoughts. So we'll still go into how we define all of these things, right? Now, Google has been asking almost the same question that we're asking today in this seminar. And they said to themselves, and they put considerable time and effort into it. And they said, with surveys, experiments, and all of that, Google developed a list of about 5 simple onboarding tips, right, for managers, rather than creating a comprehensive process because of few people willing to embrace a lengthy process. I'll be honest. I think I also believe that a very short onboarding process, but concise, and that gives you a clear direction of what you want to do, is actually the way to go. And I'll quickly share that, the list of the 5 things that Google experimented on and what they sort of delivered a conclusion on. And so they said, first is to match whoever is coming in as probably a new hire in your organization with a peer buddy. That means somebody he would work with closely. The second is to help the new hire to build a social network. Now, this might be social network around colleagues, around the company's organizational community, or volunteers or stakeholders, or all of that. It might also be a social network of, possibly other businesses within the same ecosystem where that company actually works, because this might also, get them into understanding how the ecosystem works, looking for advantages and all of that. And the third thing is to schedule a monthly check-in for new hires in the first 6 months. So every month you just schedule a check-in to say, how are you doing? Maybe this will be done by the HR, and say, how are you doing? How are you faring on this job? What are the things that you would like to see better off? And I've often seen most companies do this also. And the fourth thing is to encourage open dialogue. But I don't know how this really works in Nigeria. I know that for societies that are more advanced, for lack of a better word, than ours, open dialogue is actually something that they thrive on. I mean, you can actually sit your boss down. You can, so rather than the other way around, where it's your boss always sitting you down to say this, right? They encourage a system where you can confidently sit your boss down to say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. I don't understand the business direction. There's so many things that needs to be clarified and all. So it's not going to be an environment of apprehension or of a boss and a subordinate. It's more like we understand where this business should go. We're trying to see how it fits, and then we can also speak to how it affects us, both mentally, because which is another thing that we often take for granted on this side of the divide, right? How it affects us mentally, how it affects us physically, uh, how it affects a few other things that we need to do, right? And so the fifth thing that Google tells us to do is to meet your new hires on their first day. I know most organizations often do this, and I also think it's a very good approach. And when they say meet your hires on the first day, it really doesn't mean just one person. It might be like the entire team just meeting them. Oftentimes we go to churches and then we're like, hey, first time, and then they say the church, says, oh, come, they get your name and all that, and then they do follow-ups, right? It's almost like something similar. And so if we look at these 5 tips that I have shared, it basically tells you something, right? It basically tells you that everybody is trying as much as possible to help a new hire or a new person in an organization to actually get on their feet, not probably in the first week, not probably in the first month, but helping them to understand how they fit into the organization how they fit into the business model, how their skills can actually help, how there are other skills that might have been dormant that they might not even have thought will be relevant on this particular job will come in and probably save the day. I can give you an example. Say for a company who is just like in one of my former companies. Actually, this happened, right? You're hired as XYZ, and then all of a sudden, other production houses come and say they're having a football match, and you're like, okay, I'll be the goalkeeper, right? Because you just love to play football and you love to keep goals. And so we went out on that day, and then kept goal. And for some reason, I just sort of saved the day as a goalkeeper, right? That week on the job, I might probably have done like, really badly. But that weekend when I saved goals, I was like the superhero. And, there was even a social media post about it that we won the competition, we beat XYZ, because, this particular teammate was awesome, right? That's not a skill that you necessarily need on the job. But at the point where it comes in handy, right? The team, the organization would appreciate it. And that also goes for other skills that one wants to think about at this particular point. So um I can break all of these down, but I just want to run through it so that we just have um at least a basic understanding of what it is, right? Um and so it's really simple because we need to define or describe how the employee's job, how it creates value. Because most times what we don't do very well is helping employees to understand, communicating the fact that what they do or the service that they have come to offer creates a value proposition, which is why they're in that particular role. Oftentimes when we say you haven't done this well, you haven't done this well, it almost certainly seems like we're saying you've not brought in any value in this particular position, right? We need to encourage employers and employees, and then we need to understand how we can easily help them map out their internal, external customers, right? And so we also need to define short-term goals, long-term goals, and then help to set a state, feedback, and loops. Because you see, sometimes when you define a short-term goal, right, and you say this short-term goal will take about 3 months, then you cannot decide if that person has not performed or has been a slow starter in that sense. Because if you give me 3 months to achieve a task, right, say for example, build a community, and in my first month, I have barely even gotten started. Maybe I've even hardly signed up one person. How do you then decide that that's the same results that I will pull in the next month? What makes you so sure that all of the results, the hard work that has gone into the first month will not pay off in the second month and in the third month, right? I've often seen slogans like hire slow and then fire fast. What that basically means is you take a longer time for your hiring process, and then you take a faster time to actually fire people off the job. But what I've often found is that that's just, lazy leadership, in my own opinion. It just simply says that you have not invested, you have not invested time, you have not invested resources in helping these people grow. And also, there's also something I would like to point out. Sometimes when we see people come on a job, right, they come with a certain skill set. However, we still need to build on those skill sets because the world we live in today is so fast paced that what you know today, once you go to sleep and wake up tomorrow morning, might be outdated, right? So, and in the world where AI is taking all the jobs, I thank God I still have a job, because who knows if I'll be waking up tomorrow morning and someone will tell me that AI has taken my job, right? And so in that sense, I think AI is beating us all to being the toppest performer in the labor market, right? Um, but that being said, we often really see some of the things that I have talked about now. But I want to open this up for a little bit of discussion. But before I do, I want to say this. Um, Once performance issues are basically identified with an employee, right? There is a short loop for you to act very fast, whether as an employee or as an organization or as a startup, so that you can possibly nip whatever the issue is in the bud. Because again, most times what employers don't want to do is to take time, train you, invest in you, and then at the end of the day, all of that investment goes to waste, right? And so standards must be enforced, um, open channel of communication, accountability, feedback, and all of these things must be given. And so understanding that performance issues usually come from a place, right? Because there's no vacuum, right? Except in space, right? So something must have triggered um, XYZ. And oftentimes, in Nigeria, I'll be very honest, we often take jobs based on the fact that, hey, I want this job. But at the end of the day, some of us always, or some people always think, hey, I'm doing too little or I'm doing too much for too little money. And so that might also be something that affects some people. And then they go, why am I putting in all of this effort? Right? I just need to do the little that I can, thinking that, I mean, that's all. I mean, that's about what they're paying me for, right? And so I just need to do that little and then lift the rest. So when you keep compiling um, responsibilities and job loads and all of that, and it just seems like, can't kill myself, that kind of mentality comes in. But it's a different question for the employer, right? And then it's a different question and answer again for the employee, right? So in my submission, I would say,
Ẹ tètè wá.
slow can definitely
Ṣé mo ti
become
mute ara mi ṣá? Ṣé ṣe pé mo ti lọ ṣe AI?
um there's Kende. Yes, Kende is on the call. I'll open the space up real soon, Kende, so you'll be able to contribute and ask a question. But I was going to say that in my own opinion, right, I definitely believe that slow starters can even outperform top performers, because who you call a top performer today, right, is definitely someone who you have given time to learn and to become the person they are today, which is then a top performer. So in the same vein, if you give a slow starter that same room with all of the open communication, with feedback, with the right tools. And speaking about the right tools, Drogo is one of those tools that you can use to identify and track performance, right? It gives you all of the metrics that you need. It helps you identify loopholes. It creates open channels of communication. And so it is just that tool that you need. If you have a question about that, please feel free to throw it in when I open the floor. And with that said, I hope I have been able to convince you, and maybe not to convince you, that definitely, I believe, for one, slow starters can definitely become top performers. I mean, I'll tell you, or I'll give you a very practical example. I happen to be a very slow starter, like way back in secondary school, right? Way back in secondary school, and it was so dramatic that everyone in my family just felt like I couldn't do much, or wasn't going to amount to much, because at the point I actually had to like repeat a class, like in SS1. But then once I realized what was holding me back, right, and I got into university, I just began my upward trajectory from there. And ever since, I mean, the story has been different. So let's open. Candy's hand is still up. Candy, if you have a question, a comment, a suggestion, please feel free to throw it in. I don't know if I can unmute her or if host can actually do that so she can comment, or if she can hear us, she can do that by herself.
Oh, sorry, I pressed the button by mistake. Please, let's continue, please. Can you hear me?
Okay, so
Yes. Please
yes, I
continue.
can hear you.
I
Okay,
pressed the button by mistake. Yeah, please continue.
okay. All right. So like I was saying, if there are any contributions from the house, I'd like to make this an open discussion. In your own opinion, right? We've all had experiences with employers, employees, and on the job. Can you give us practical experiences? Can you give us maybe other people's experiences, thought people narratives of how you've actually seen this being practicalized, and if you actually think that there is something that could be done differently, or if you also are of the opinion that slow starters can never become top performers.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right. I would actually like to contribute to this. Uh, First of all, I would like us to clarify. When we say slow starters, is there a duration? Is there a space? Is there a time frame to it? Is it a 1 week um after you got the job, or is it a 1 month duration after you got the job? Because we need to understand when we say slow starters. Is it within the first week, or is it within the first month, or is it the first quarter? Because that's important for us to actually point out. Because most companies actually work with duration. Now, the second thing is when people actually join a certain company, say for the first time on a fresh job role, um, the mode of operation that they actually took from the previous job into the new job is quite different. You get it? I might actually be more of a single person, like a lone person player, then actually come to a different thing and actually have to be a team player here. That kind of operations actually changes too. Some people like to operate alone, some people actually are team players, they operate better when they actually have a partner and all. So these are constitutions that I'm actually pulling out and actually saying that, okay, fine, for this topic for today in this webinar, can we actually have clarifications on that, Mr. Dawson?
Okay, so the first one is that can somebody who if I got your question quite rightly, how organizations really define who a slow starter is with regards to probationary periods. So for some organizations, I know that it's more common with organizations to put a 3 month probationary time frame. Some do 6 months. I've not heard of anybody who does 1 year, but we've had people advocate, right, for 1 year on the job, and then after that we can then begin to take measures to either fire or otherwise for that new or slow starter. But I would also say that so it basically at that point depends on the organization, right? And it depends on the goals that you are expected to meet. Some organizations expect you to meet daily sales, for example. If you don't meet sales in a day, I mean, for some especially for fast moving consumer goods, you there's no explaining that you went out for a day, you took all of the company's resources and all of that, and then you didn't make sales. How do you explain that, right? At the end of the week, you know how much that tells on their business. And then the organizations that basically deal with um, monthly, weekly services. So the organization needs to define that, and then by defining that, we then need to understand how that organization works. And then the HR person or the CEO or organization lead or team lead can then decide, oh, okay, these are the metrics that we need you to finalize. These are the deliverables that you need to be able to achieve on the job, and then decide on what to do after that. But there's also something I would like to say before answering your second question, right? It's the fact that there is also this points that I think I didn't mention. So for somebody who's just starting off on a new job, you haven't had any job experience before, right? There's a difference when you get into the workforce. It's usually like, I don't know anything about what to do. So I really need like hands-on tutorial. And so really need to be held along, basically. So it's different for somebody who has probably had um, a job experience. When they get into a new role, they often almost have an idea of what to do, but it might just change in terms of maybe dynamics of public or private sector industry, because you might be working in the hospitality business before, but now you have moved to real estate. You need to understand that, yes, well, while they are close, they are not the same, right? People in hospitality, the way they buy services is quite different from the way people in real estate buy services, right? Hospitality services, you can really sell to anybody, but real estate, you have to sell to the high end, up and upwardly mobile people, people who have a certain specific. So you're really targeting a particular demographic, right? So understanding all of these dynamics also helps us or to identify slow starters and then top performers, right? And that's why you often see this is where the 10 years experience, 15 years experience often comes in, because everybody is looking for that person who can actually deliver on the first day. They don't want to be holding your hand, so to speak. And then we often ask the question, so where's the role of the NYC just left orientation camp, and is looking for a first job to do, or where is the role? What is the role of the first school leaver and all of that? And so you then begin to ask yourself all of these other questions that maybe a few people might pose in this particular. Yeah. So that's it. So then your to quickly answer your second question, I would say that there is a very simple answer to that, and it's that when people often want to, when they get a job, right, it's always often sweet talk and try to make themselves like pin themselves like, hey, I'm the best hire, I'm the best person for this job. However, we often see that the reverse is often the case, and so employees become frustrated. So understanding that who you need for your job and who the person says they are quite two different things. And so when you hire, I think it's quite important for hiring teams to understand what motivates people to do a particular job. And so if they understand that, what your motivation and what drives you, I think that would help in also pinpointing some of these issues that most slow starters have and on their way to becoming top performers, I would say.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Dodson. Absolutely. Well, thank you. Jesse, you had the question.
Yes, I have a question. Good afternoon, everyone. So I wanted to know if there is like a difference between being a slow starter and simply just having a different working style. Like for example, someone who just prefers to plan extensively before diving in, versus someone who just jumps right in and learns as they go.
Okay, so for that, it's quite tricky, because I'll be honest, we are all different individuals, right? But most times we often find that we are different people at work, and that's because that's what the job demands, right? Um, and if you look at it, once you start working, you spend most of your time at that job, on that job, and so you can't be a different person simply because that's who you are. You often hear people say, "Ah, this job has changed me." Oh, that's because you need to change, right? So if you really love to Okay, can everybody hear me again? Sorry, I lost network for a
Yeah, we
bit.
can hear you. We
Okay,
lost you for a
okay,
minute.
so yeah, so that being said, you need to change. You can't be um a long-term planner on a job that needs short-term delivery goals, right? You need to adjust yourself basically to fit the specifics and the dynamics of the job. So you often have to do it not because you're comfortable with it, but because when you think of it, that's where you get your livelihood from. And so you just doing it, you might also often find out that it brings out the better parts of you. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that, but for someone without the experience, say you're a youth corper, right? And like where you are serving at the moment is not exactly your field of study, right? And maybe you just need time to, adjust, adapt, learn, pick one or two before you can say, okay, you're good to go on this job. Maybe you just need time to digest, take it all in before you give out your best, right? Give out your output. So that's where me I'm coming from, right? Like, of course, at the start, you're still struggling, trying to meet deadlines, trying to deliver on one or two. But I feel like you still need, for slow starters, you just need to like digest everything, take it all in first of all before you know if you can deliver or not. Or if you see that you're not even delivering at all, then you know that, oh, okay, it's not the job, it's me. So that's, I think that's where me I'm coming from, Sha.
Yeah, I think I quite understand where you're coming from, and a few people might as well. But I think I would still restate that regardless of what that position is, you need to understand that these certain sets of deliverables are expected of you. This is what you're supposed to do, and so you must just do it on the job. And whether you like it or not, you have to brace yourself for these changes. I've had a few experiences from a couple of people like that. That's why I said at the beginning that hiring managers and startups and companies need to understand what motivates individuals to do certain things. So if they have that motivation, right, they can tell that, hey, this person will definitely bring out their A game. Maybe not on the short term, but eventually, right? When given time, when given all the resources that they need to do well, they will definitely do that. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
So I don't know if there are any other contributions for this particular outing today. If there are, please feel free to ask your question.
All right. Seems we don't have anyone who wants to ask Mr. Dotson any further questions. For those who actually missed out on the introduction, I know Mr. Dotson is actually, I blew his trumpet first of all, and then he's a very humble man. He would not like to make noise, but I can actually help him blow it rather than the vuvuzela. But it's all good. Mr. Dotson, like I said earlier, for those who missed it, has actually worked both internationally and nationally, and he's done quite a number of jobs, projects in the publicity space. He's worked with quite a number of people, so he's probably the right man to actually talk on this topic. And we're honored to actually have him today to actually run this for us and then share his insights about can slow starters actually become great performance. I want to believe that we actually were able to grab one or two things from it and then we can actually apply it in our day-to-day activities. Yeah.
I have a question. No,
Yeah, there's a
Oh,
question.
Jimmy, thank you for joining us. You can shoot now.
okay. Yeah, sorry. Hi, everyone. I kind of got in late. I think my question is just how much time is enough time for slow starters, right? I know we're talking about slow starters. How because I personally also believe that so because I personally believe that I feel like being a slow starter actually affects your performance because sometimes it's not even really about like getting all your job, getting everything done. It's just to see that okay, you have what it takes to get these things done. You're asking questions when necessary. You're like the zeal and you have that fire in you, right? So my question now is how long is enough for like the grace period of like slow starters? Like how much time should you give a slow starter before you either decide to like maybe let them off or take disciplinary actions and all of that? Like how much time is enough time?
Right. Thank you, Falola. Okay. So I have a very subtle shades to throw in this regard, right? And in a rhetorical question kind of way, I would say, how much time is enough time for the president of Nigeria to fix the country, right? People will spend as much time as they need, but you often always find out that it's not the time, right, that really matters. It's the competency that the person brings that matters. Um, I can tell you for a fact that you can give some slow starters 10 years on a row and they're not ready to improve. They're not ready to develop. They're not ready to change their mindset. They're not ready to learn skills. They're not ready to take courses. They're not so. They're not. Some people are just not ready to change, regardless of what the job demands. They just feel, nah, I'm rigid. Let me just, stay this way. But we have often found out that the reverse is the case. The world changes on a per second basis. Everything changes. Everything that you think you know now would be infinitely irrelevant to you and to the society in the next 3, 4, 5 years. So, how do you keep up? It means that you need to change even twice as fast. You need to evolve twice as fast as um, the times. Because if you get sucked in, right, you just find out that you have no place in the labor market. One, you have no place in the society itself. And that, like I said at the beginning, AI might just take all of these jobs that humans are not really ready to take at the moment. So I would say again, just to go back to answering your question, it depends on organizations. I think I said some organizations do 3 months probationary period. Some say 6 months, and then after that, they can begin to look inward and say, "Oh, okay, we've given this much time. This person hasn't done enough," and that's why I also said that because it's difficult for hiring personnel, HR managers, and executives at most organizations to decide and determine what metrics to actually even track to decide if you're performing well. Is it your goals? Is it your sales drive? What is it that they are tracking, and how are they tracking it? If they don't track it well, then it's really hard for them to really decide or determine that you're actually a slow starter. And so Drogo, like I said, is one tool that helps you do that, right? There are tools, there are things that help you achieve all of these things, right? And then you see them in real time, right? And so after this particular webinar, we would also share more, we would like to share more insight on what that is and how that helps you to really define some of these things that we talked about, and then moving yourself away from that league of slow starters onto the league of top performers. And I also think, just to wrap up, that it really takes a very strong mental agility and mental awareness for you to actually decide on your own. Well, sometimes some people might push you, but you really have to just decide that, hey, I need to do better. Most oftentimes because that's what the job requires, and that's what is required to move on to the next level, and just clinch yourself a top performer spot on that podium.
Thank you very much. I think one second. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Dalton. Jumaka, very good question. Thank you for actually popping that up. Do we still have any other questions from anyone? Okay, if there are no questions, I just dropped a link to the Jogo community group. If you're interested, please, you can click on the link and join the Jogo community group where we'd actually further conversations that surrounds everything that actually pertains to topics that we discussed in the webinar. Please feel free to join, please, because it's for everyone's benefit. You can actually share your ideas. You can actually learn from other people's ideas too. Thank you also for joining this webinar for this week. We actually run this every week, and then we actually have physical events that actually comes up once every month. We'll be sending out the newsletters, we're sending out emails to everyone, and I pray that we actually will make it to all this and actually learn more. Once again, thank you, Mr. Dotson, for actually sharing your knowledge with us, and then I want to believe that everyone actually learns from this too. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
So much. Bye.